Atheism often presents itself as the voice of reason, the champion of logic, and the banner of science. It claims to free humanity from myths and superstitions, insisting that the idea of God is nothing more than an outdated relic of primitive minds. Yet, when examined deeply and carefully, atheism collapses under the weight of its own contradictions and inadequacies. The belief that there is no God might sound bold and liberating on the surface, but when tested against reality, reason, and human experience, it proves to be shallow and incomplete. The first problem atheism faces is the very existence of the universe itself. Why is there something rather than nothing? Matter, energy, time, and space all came into existence. Atheism suggests that everything appeared out of nothing, without cause and without purpose. But this violates one of the most basic truths of reason, that nothing can cause itself. The universe could not simply pop into existence without a source, just as a book cannot write itself and a house cannot construct itself. Every effect demands a cause, and the cause of the universe must be outside the universe, timeless, immaterial, and immensely powerful. This is precisely what people mean when they speak of God. To deny God is to leave the origin of all things unexplained, which is hardly a position of reason. Beyond the mere existence of the universe lies its astonishing order. The laws of physics are not random or chaotic. They are precise, delicate, and balanced in a way that makes life possible. If the strength of gravity, the charge of an electron, or the expansion rate of the universe were altered even slightly, the universe would collapse into chaos or fail to form stars, planets, and eventually, life. Atheists attribute this incredible fine-tuning to chance. But chance is not a force. It is only a word we use when we do not know the cause. The probability of a life-permitting universe appearing by accident is so infinitesimally small that it is far more rational to conclude that it was designed with intention. When a person sees words written on a page, he does not assume ink spilled randomly. He assumes a mind wrote them. Likewise, the universe itself bears the marks of intelligence, not accident. The problem deepens when we move from the universe to life itself. How did life begin? Atheists argue that simple chemicals randomly combined to form the first living cell, but a single cell is more complex than the most advanced machine humans have ever built. DNA contains coded information, like a library filled with instructions. Information does not arise from blind physical processes, it comes from intelligence. Just as no one believes that the letters of a book assembled themselves by the wind, no rational person should believe the information systems within DNA arose by sheer accident. The leap from lifeless matter to conscious life is so enormous that chance alone cannot bridge it. The existence of life is a powerful argument for a creator who brought order and purpose to the chaos of raw matter. Consciousness itself further undermines atheism. If the human mind is nothing more than chemicals reacting in the brain, then thoughts are not truly rational but just the outcome of physical processes. Atheism reduces love, morality, creativity, and reason itself to nothing more than neurons firing by accident. But human experience tells us otherwise. We know that we make choices, we pursue truth, and we experience beauty and meaning. Consciousness points to something beyond matter, to a spiritual dimension that materialism cannot explain. Denying this is not only irrational but also deeply contradictory, because the atheist uses reason and consciousness to argue against the very foundation that makes reason and consciousness possible. Morality presents another challenge to atheism. If there is no God, then morality is just an invention of human culture, a set of rules made up for survival and convenience. But humans everywhere recognize certain things as universally right or wrong. Murder, cruelty, and betrayal are condemned across cultures, while kindness, honesty, and justice are celebrated. This moral law is not subjective. It is woven into the fabric of human existence. If morality were just a product of evolution, then no act could truly be called evil. It would all just be behavior shaped by survival. Yet every human being knows in their heart that some things are absolutely wrong, no matter what anyone thinks. This sense of right and wrong points to a moral lawgiver, a source higher than human opinion, and that source is God. Atheism cannot explain why morality feels binding and universal. It can only reduce it to preference, which contradicts the reality of human experience. Even if atheism tries to dismiss morality, it still fails to give meaning to life. If the universe is an accident and humans are nothing more than advanced animals, then our existence has no ultimate purpose. Everything ends in death, and even the universe itself will one day collapse into nothingness. What, then, is the point of love, sacrifice, or achievement if it all dissolves into oblivion? Atheism tells us that purpose is an illusion, a story we invent to comfort ourselves. But people naturally search for meaning, and that hunger itself is evidence of a higher reality. Just as thirst points to water and hunger points to food, the human longing for meaning points to the existence of God. Without Him, life is reduced to emptiness, no matter how loudly one denies it. The reliability of reason itself is at stake under atheism. If the human mind is a product of blind evolutionary processes designed not for truth but for survival, then why trust its conclusions? Evolution might favor useful illusions over truth, meaning our thoughts could be shaped by survival rather than reality. Yet atheists trust reason to argue against God. This is self-defeating, because by denying God, they undermine the very foundation that makes reason trustworthy. If, however, the mind is created by God in His image, then reason is reliable and truth is accessible. Belief in God, therefore, makes sense of reason itself in a way atheism cannot. History also challenges atheism. Throughout all ages, across all cultures, billions of people have experienced the divine. They have prayed and seen answers, reported visions and miracles, and lived transformed lives. To dismiss all of this as mere illusion is unreasonable. The persistence of faith throughout human history cannot be explained away as ignorance. Human beings are naturally religious, and this universality points to something real at the core. If a hunger for food points to the existence of food, and a thirst for water points to the existence of water, then the universal longing for God points to His existence. Atheism cannot explain why humanity, from its earliest days, has turned instinctively toward the divine. Finally, atheism offers nothing in the face of death. For the atheist, death is the end, a return to nothingness, the annihilation of the self. But the human heart resists this conclusion. People long for hope beyond the grave, for justice that this world does not always deliver, for love that outlives death. These desires are not accidents. They are signposts to a greater reality. The promise of life after death, grounded in the existence of God, answers the deepest cries of the human soul. Atheism, on the other hand, leaves people in despair, unable to offer hope or meaning. In the end, atheism claims to be the worldview of reason, but it leaves the biggest questions unanswered. It cannot explain why the universe exists, why it is finely tuned for life, how life began, why consciousness exists, or why morality binds us. It cannot provide meaning. It undermines reason. It dismisses history, and it denies hope. God, on the other hand, explains all of these realities in a coherent and meaningful way. Belief in God is not an escape from reason, but its fulfillment. Atheism, when stripped of its bold language, is ultimately empty, while faith in God gives a foundation for truth, morality, purpose, and hope. To deny God is not strength, it is blindness to the very realities that surround us and live within us. Another weakness of atheism lies in its inability to explain beauty. Human beings are moved by art, music, poetry, and the magnificence of nature. A sunset, a symphony, or the delicate pattern of a flower can fill the heart with awe and wonder. If life is nothing more than survival and reproduction, why do we experience beauty at all? Evolutionary explanations reduce beauty to an accident or a byproduct, but this is deeply unsatisfying. Beauty is unnecessary for survival, yet it is essential for the human spirit. It points beyond the material, to a creator who infused the universe with harmony and wonder. Beauty is not an illusion. It is a signature of God written into creation. Atheism also fails to explain love in its deepest sense. Love is not merely a chemical reaction in the brain or a survival strategy for passing on genes. True love involves sacrifice, devotion, and the willingness to give one's life for another. Parents sacrifice everything for their children. Soldiers give their lives for comrades, and people devote themselves to causes greater than themselves. If atheism were true, such sacrifices would be irrational because they often reduce survival rather than enhance it. Yet love is the highest expression of human existence, and it makes sense only if humans are more than matter, if they are souls capable of self-giving, reflecting the very nature of God who is love. The question of justice further exposes the weakness of atheism. In this world, justice is rarely complete. The innocent suffer, the guilty often prosper, and many wrongs remain unpunished. If there is no God, then injustice has the final word and evil triumphs. Yet deep within, every human heart cries out for ultimate justice, for a reckoning where good is rewarded and evil is punished. This cry makes no sense in a purely material universe where everything ends in death. But it makes perfect sense if there is a just God who will one day set all things right. The existence of this longing for justice points to the reality of divine judgment beyond this life. Atheism also struggles with the sheer improbability of human existence. The chance of life arising at all is beyond imagination, but the chance of human beings with intelligence, creativity, and moral awareness emerging by blind processes is so small it is practically zero. To attribute human existence to mere accident is to defy reason. It is far more rational to believe that humanity was intended, that life was designed with purpose, and that human beings are the result of divine will rather than blind forces. Atheism reduces humanity to cosmic dust, but the reality of human uniqueness points to a creator who fashioned us with meaning. Finally, atheism cannot explain the power of transformation that belief in God has brought throughout history. Entire civilizations have been shaped by faith. People consumed by hate have found forgiveness. Addicts have been freed, broken families restored, and lives utterly changed. The atheist may dismiss these as psychological tricks, but the sheer scale and depth of transformation across centuries and cultures testify to something greater. Ideas alone do not change the human heart. Encounters with God do. Atheism has no power to lift people from despair to hope, from selfishness to sacrifice, from hate to love. But faith in God has done this countless times. The fruits of belief are evident, and they cannot be ignored. Taken together, these reasons further demonstrate that atheism is not the stronghold of reason it pretends to be. It cannot explain beauty, love, justice, the uniqueness of human existence, or the power of transformation. Each of these realities cries out for something higher, something greater, something beyond the material. And that something is God. Far from being outdated, belief in God is the only worldview that truly makes sense of the universe, of life, and of the human heart. Atheism denies what is right in front of us, while faith affirms it and gives us the foundation we need to live, to hope, and to love. Another reason atheism fails is its inability to account for the universal human longing for the transcendent. Across every culture and era, humans have reached beyond themselves in search of God, the divine, or the sacred. This is not a cultural accident, but a deep feature of human nature. Even where organized religion has been rejected, people still seek spiritual connection through meditation, rituals, or the pursuit of higher truths. If atheism were true, this universal instinct would be meaningless and misleading. But instincts exist because they point to real fulfillments: hunger to food, thirst to water, and spiritual longing to God. Atheism cannot explain why this hunger for transcendence exists at all. But theism explains it naturally. The human soul was made for its creator. Equally important is the problem of human dignity. Atheism reduces humans to complex animals, products of blind processes with no special status in the universe. But in practice, even atheists live as though human beings have unique worth. They fight for human rights, condemn slavery, and value equality. Yet if atheism is true, there is no reason to believe that humans are more valuable than insects or stones. The concept of human dignity only makes sense if humans were created in the image of God, endowed with worth that transcends biology. Without God, there is no foundation for why human life should be sacred, and all moral claims to dignity collapse into personal opinion. Belief in God alone secures the truth that every human being has value beyond measure.